Having everything rooted in this historical accuracy, but then we purposely are making those heels higher, more poppy, making the skirt shorter, like all of those things to, again, connect us to the 2013 of it all. Oh, also they're very high. I had to wear a pair when I was running around on set, and oh my God, I almost broke my ankle.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Costume Blogcast. I'm Elizabeth Joy Glass.
And I'm Spencer Williams. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hey, Spencer. How's your week been?
Oh, my voice is going out because my Disney adult lifestyle has caught up to me and I screamed a little too much on the Guardians ride last night. So excuse me if my voice goes in and out today.
Well, I'm jealous. I am stuck in Pennsylvania not being able to be a Disney adult, so...
Well, you just have to move back out here. We bring this up every episode. Something has to give.
This is true. I know. It is my fault.
Speaking of Disneyland and having a good time, today we have a very special guest, the wonderful, the legendary costume designer, Whitney Anne Adams. Hey, Whitney.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
We're so excited to have you. If you all do not know, March is the beginning of our Catherine Martin month, and Whitney has tons of connections to the world of Baz Luhrmann and CM, so we're so excited to have you here.
Oh, I can't wait to talk all things costume.
How's it been going? You've been doing so much lately.
Been very busy. I just finished a movie in North Carolina at the end of last year, a period movie. So I'm very excited. And then I have a movie coming out later this month called We Have a Ghost. So I'm starting press for that. And I'm so excited for the world to finally see it.
I am so excited. It comes out on February 24th on Netflix. We Have a Ghost. It has David Harbour, Jennifer Coolidge, Anthony Mackie. I mean, Jennifer Coolidge is playing a medium. Yes. I need to see this as soon as possible.
We had an absolute blast figuring out her costumes. She had a couple in this one, and it was so much fun.
What can we expect? Lots of ghostly costumes, fun textiles, great colors.
I love a texture. I love a pattern. I love bright colors, and really wanted to find a lot of depth with all of these characters, especially in, action sequences, and so much is going on, and you really want to make sure that you know exactly who these people are. So I loved working with my cast to really develop their backstories and their point of views, like who are they sartorially, why do they wear what they wear? And I think my favorite was definitely working with Jahi, who plays Kevin, and then also with David Harbour, who plays our ghost Ernest, and developing that costume was super fun.
I can't wait. I know what we will probably be watching on February 24th.
And this week, we start off with the Oscar-winning The Great Gatsby.
Yes. I am so excited to talk about this film. The best way, can we call it Catherine Martin March? That sounds pretty cool.
It's Catherine Martin March. Catherine Martin March. Yes. Yes, I am so excited to jump into this. Spencer, do you want to get us started with the summary?
Yeah. This week, we watched The Great Gatsby. And I hadn't seen this film since it came out, so this was like a real fun treat to go backwards. I remember when this film came out, because I was a senior in high school, and we all had to pick our one book to read, and everyone was fighting to read The Great Gatsby at the time, so it was all the hype, and I'm really excited. Let me give you all a summary. Nick Carraway, a would-be writer, arrives in 1922 New York in the search of the American dream. Nick moves in next door to millionaire Jay Gatsby and across the bay from his cousin, Daisy. Thus, Nick becomes drawn into the captivating world of the wealthy, and as he bears witness to their illusions and deceits, pens a tale of impossible love, dreams, and tragedy. And that is The Great Gatsby.
That is The Great Gatsby. If you don't know what happens in The Great Gatsby, go watch it. I don't know what to tell you. The book's 100 years old? You should none of the information about the story we say should be a surprise to you.
It's still, when I watched it this morning, I still didn't know that Gatsby dies in the end.
That's like the whole point of the book.
I know. I've never read it.
I mean, it's been a long time since I read it, but I at least remember that much.
I know. I'm sorry.
In working on this movie, I read the book over 40 times, so I pretty much have it memorized now.
Oh my goodness.
What? That is a lot.
That is a lot. I remember reading this in high school and like being bored by it, and then I loved the movie because I was like, oh, pictures. This is a lot more interesting. So I cannot imagine having to read that 40 times.
I mean, no one asked me to do it. I just decided that I needed to know the book backwards and forwards.
You got to do what you got to do for your job.
Well, clearly it worked because you are part of the Academy Award winning team for The Great Gatsby. So I think read books, everybody, because it helps.
Absolutely. And let's go behind the wardrobe with director Baz Luhrmann, costume designer, and on this film, production designer, which don't know how she managed both. We have Catherine Martin, who you will know from Moulin Rouge, for which she won her first Oscar. Australia, and quite frankly, that's one of my favorite movies ever, Australia. Her second Oscar nomination, The Get Down, and Elvis, for which she is currently nominated.
Yes. I've actually never seen Australia, but Whitney's the one who told me about it. I don't know how I never heard of it, and I've still been trying to see it. It hasn't happened yet, but I will.
Definitely watch it. I know that Elizabeth really likes it too, but I have a special connection to it because that's how I met Baz and CM, was during the promotional tour for that movie.
Right.
I won a costume design contest and won a free trip to Australia. And through, I wrote a letter to her website. And then 2 years later, I ended up getting hired for 3 weeks, which then turned into many, many years. So I feel very lucky to know them. And thanks to Australia.
Right. I love that. I need to watch it. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So today we have Whitney with us because she was a costume design assistant on The Great Gatsby. And you just told us a little bit how you got to know Baz Luhrmann and Catherine. What was it like, your experience working on The Great Gatsby?
Well, it was such a whirlwind. I mean, Catherine and Baz are the reason I think I'm a costume designer now. My favorite movie to this day is Moulin Rouge. I've seen it over 300 times. I was really sick in high school. And when I was in the hospital, in and out of the hospital, I watched that movie every day to keep me distracted from, possibly dying and being really sick. And so that movie saved my life in more ways than one and really introduced me to this world of design. So getting to meet both of them was just, complete shock to my system in general. And then getting to work for them and learn from them and just be a part of this magical world was kind of like a dream come true. I still can't believe it all happened.
Right.
That's for sure.
That's so beautiful. We've never had a costume design assistant, so to say, on the podcast. So what did that role look like? It's a little bit more different than what we're used to on the podcast.
Yes, it's very an interesting title. I think because I was sort of just a jack of all trades. I mean, I was looking through my emails and I was originally hired as the costume/art department assistant in New York. And I was we were prepping in New York for 5 months. So I was just originally supposed to be on the prep in New York side. And then I kept getting more and more tasks and, turn into 12, 15-hour days. And, so I did tasks from, shopping and swatching to doing coordinating type of jobs to doing assistant type work. So I sort of did a little bit of everything, which is why the title sort of encompasses of those different things. And then I got to be in Australia for a few months for the end of prep and the beginning of filming. And then once we had lots of things designed, and also I was like one of the there's only 2 Americans in Australia, and they're like, "You're very expensive. We love you. Please go home."
Here's your shipping container.
Thank you for everything. And I was exhausted. It'd been a year at that point that I'd been on the movie. So I needed to go home and rest. It was pretty much a huge whirlwind, but I'm so grateful for every moment and second I got to be a part of it.
You're like, what? You're sending me home? What?
I
Why?
know. I know, but I'm just grateful I even got to go to Australia because I originally was not supposed to. So I'm really thankful that I had those few months there to get to see filming and be on set. And Gatsby was my first movie. I was learning so much, and just getting to be a part of it in the capacity that I was a huge gift. So I'm very grateful for that.
Right. Such a valuable experience. I can't even imagine.
And getting into what I guess prep was like, deciding what their version of The Great Gatsby was going to be, Catherine told Forbes about the kind of New York they were looking for. She said, I don't want a nostalgic New York. I don't want sepia-toned New York. I want a New York that feels as vibrant and sexy and visceral and modern as it would have to Zelda and Fitzgerald or any of the characters in the book, which is very true. This, while you obviously know you're in the 1920s, it reads very modern, what we think of as modern.
Yeah, it's fresh, it's colorful, it makes you feel most nostalgic. You want to be in that world, even though maybe on paper you might not, but at the same time, it's very alluring. That's what I love about any Baz Luhrmann or Catherine Martin film. While the stories could be very sometimes, emotional, powerful, dark even, but the colors are just so alluring about it. It makes you want to be a part of that world.
And that was the first thing Baz sort of said to us when we got started. We're not making a faithful adaptation. We needed to do all of our research, and we spent months and months cultivating every single type of research from that time. But that was our foundation to then, okay, how do we alter these existing period shapes and colors to make it more modern and make it play to today's audience? So that was definitely the first insight into what we were going to do on the movie as a whole.
I love that. Also, in an interview she did with Forbes, she talked about, while it was set in the summer of 1922, the book's foreshadowing a lot. So Baz was like, use the whole decade to pull from. So you were really able, because it's such a diverse decade for fashion, you were able to pull from a lot of different styles just within the 1920s.
Completely. I mean, it's the first sort of time the corset goes away, bodies are freer, and so much happens in the 20s. And we're able to do a lot of character storytelling. Daisy's stuff is very much early 20s, whereas Jordan, the more modern woman, is very much late 20s. So getting to place every character in their own place in the decade was super important.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a real fashion history moment, just being able to see all the bias cuts or, the very rectangular shape or the short hairs or the big jewelry. It's just so exciting. I felt like a fashion student again watching this film this morning, actually.
Yeah, that was actually one of the best things about doing the research for this is I felt like a fashion student again, because I'm like, oh, you get I feel like in school you get an overview of the 1920s, but when you really get into it, you're like, oh my goodness, there's so much.
Yeah, because I think from a public point of view with fashion 1920s, people are so quick to be like, oh, it's the flapper's dress, and that was it. Just lots of fringe. Mm-hmm. It's just, that's such surface level.
Yeah, we really wanted to avoid that. And especially, there's so many shapes from the 20s. It's not just this drop waist dress. It's the robe de style. There's so many different things you can pull from. I mean, all of what Lanvin was doing and endless resources. So we had so much room to do our own interpretation for every single, thing that you see on camera.
I love that. I also love this quote from a Forbes interview she did. She said, one of the things that really interested me was in the 1920s, there was a lot of photographic record of the clothes. And for the first time in history, there are sketches and then there are photos of the actual dress. What I became really interested in was the idealization of the silhouette in the drawing and how they always tended to be leaner and meaner in the drawing than they were in reality, which I had never really thought of that. But I was like, yeah, in these 1920s illustrations, it's much more of our idea of a fitted garment. And then the translation is, kind of bit more baggy.
Yeah. Definitely. You can tell that we've slimmed a lot of the silhouettes in the film.
Truly. Well, I am so excited to get into this film. Let's take a little break. And when we get back, we have a party to get to. I can't wait.
Yes.
All right. Are you guys ready to party with The Great Gatsby?
Yes.
I'm so excited to get into it. And one thing I was really excited to learn about was just, how much of the book really played a role into this film. I mean, obviously, it's such a famous, well-known book. Everyone's read it except me, essentially. So, going through our research and talking to Whitney before we got into this, I was interested to learn about, all the visual references you guys kind of pulled from the book in preparation before we get into the actual main characters.
We got images and references from everywhere. I mean, we pulled from the Costume Institute, from the Met, from different art galleries, photography. We, of course, all the online searching, all of the books that exist, and then a lot of magazines, contemporary magazines from the era, and literally getting every single visual piece of reference, because then we could focus in from there. We wanted to get everything that existed and then hone in on exactly what everyone should be wearing. But, we needed a lot of costumes. I think we ended up with somewhere between 1,200 and 1,700 costumes. And we made,
Wow.
almost all of them. So
Wow.
it's a lot of work.
I was listening to an interview actually right before I jumped on where Catherine was talking about the scene where Daisy and Jordan, where you first see them and, the wind's blowing through the curtains. And she mentioned that actually that scene, again, haven't read a book, but a version of that scene happens in the book. But she was inspired by like the words from the book to actually, work into the production set, but also the costumes. Does that sound familiar?
Completely. I mean, what's so great about having, CM do both production and costume design is that her world is so specific because she's creating both sides of it. And so, we were able to really incorporate everything together. I think that's why her visuals gel so beautifully, is that it all comes from her brain.
Right.
That's
what a beautiful brain.
Yes, exactly.
Getting into it, we have right off the bat just Gatsby's huge parties, which are, I think, one of the best parts of this movie.
Oh,
definitely what every high schooler
I remember
was trying to have their prom.
I just remember the first day that we filmed the dancing sequence in the first party. We filmed in 3D, so we're all sitting at the monitor with our 3D glasses on.
Wait, you filmed it in 3D?
The movie came out in 2013 in 3D. So that was like a huge thing at the time. Yeah, it was all about 3D. And so we're like, have our 3D glasses on. And the funniest thing is that we didn't have the music yet. We had a temp track for the right. And it was the LMFAO's Party Rock Anthem. And so it just kept playing over and over again. And you see them all dancing and seeing just all of our hard work for the past year I had been working on it, and seeing everyone dance for that first time together. I was just sobbing, just crying, because I couldn't believe that it was all really happening. And also, it was my first movie set. I had never been in anything like that before. So it was a completely overwhelming experience in such a beautiful way. So every time you hear Party Rock Anthem, I get a little misty.
That's so funny. There's probably only a handful of people that would ever say that about that song. I cry, but for different reasons, because that was like the high school dance song. That's so funny. Before we get further into it, the soundtrack on this film, full of bangers. I mean, Lana Del Rey, Fergie, it's just all bangers.
This movie, it came out the perfect time because I was a senior when this came out. And I tried so hard for this to be our prom theme.
Everyone
it wasn't,
did.
But
Everyone
I was
did.
This needs to be our prom. And I was like always like, we could have had a Gatsby prom.
We could have done it. And I on one of my last days on the movie, I got to be an extra in the first party scene. So getting to wear a dress that I helped design and jewelry that I helped design and getting the whole hair and makeup and running around with Baz telling us what to do. I mean, that was pretty special.
I am so jealous right now.
Also jealous because of the very special Prada collaboration that happened on this film. Catherine told Forbes, well, Baz has a friend, Mucha Prada, for suppose nearly 20 years since Romeo plus Juliet. She has made a suit for Leo, his wedding suit, and so they had a great friendship and really challenging, active, artistic, and philosophical dialogue. And just having that phrase of Baz, I don't want New York to be boring sepia in my head. Well, that boring part is my position on that. But I kept thinking of how both of them in completely different ways use the past as inspiration, but then transmute it into something unexpected and something totally modern. And that's definitely what their collaboration created.
Wow. I mean, how much of it was Prada, Whitney?
So they created 40 looks for us. I mean, in conjunction with us, we collaborated on 20 for the first party scene and 20 for the second party scene. And then Catherine found this amazing beaded dress for Daisy that I'm sure we'll talk about later. But she found something from one of Mucha's previous lines that then they remade and reworked into Daisy's outfit. So it was really exciting to work with the artistry of Prada and their gorgeous sort of more is more attitude with all of the beads and sequins and luxurious fabrics. And when everything arrived, it was definitely an overwhelming day. Getting to see all of the beautiful clothes in person and just how beautifully made they are. And, it was a beautiful collaboration as, Prada and Baz and CM have all known each other for such a long time. So it was another great way that they got to work together and also bring the modern sense into it, because we wanted the modern 2013 audience to feel like you were there in those party scenes. And I remember going back and watching the 70s Gatsby, which I love too, but it felt so distant because it is so 70s in influence, because that's when it was made. So we wanted our version to very much feel like the here and now.
Wow. So smart.
I love that. I also love how they did that with the shoes, which I hadn't thought of till I saw her interview with Screen Daily, where Catherine says shoes from the 20s tend to have a quite heavy heel and were stumpy, and that to a modern eye looks matronly, and we wanted to give the audience a sense of excitement about the period and a sense of sexiness. I did not realize how fun the shoes were in this movie till I saw that quote, and I was like, oh, now I need to go look at what the shoes were like, and they are extremely modern and just fun.
I love
fun.
These. So designer, so fashionable, so edgy, especially for 2013. Like it's lots of fun.
And it was a long process to get those all designed. I mean, Silvana, the main assistant designer, and CM were going back and forth with colors and designs for weeks and weeks just to get them perfectly correct, and make sure that everything fit together so beautifully. And that was the biggest thing, is making sure that having everything rooted in this historical accuracy, but then we purposely are making those heels higher, more poppy, making the skirt shorter, like all of those things to, again, connect us to the 2013 of it all. Oh, also they're very high. I had to wear a pair when I was running around on set, and oh my God, I almost broke my ankle.
I was surprised because they look like they're like almost stilettos. Like they're like just barely not.
I think two of our additional actors dislocated a toe or two on that, if I remember properly. They were pretty high, but that was from 12 hours of wear on set. You can't wear something that high for 12 hours without something happening.
Right. I mean, and honestly, look how fun the party scenes are. There's so many people. I mean, it's bound to happen. It's colorful, so fun.
They all agreed it was worth it. And I agreed too. Just getting to wear those beautiful, beautiful shoes, absolutely worth it.
Right.
So you did have a lot of background actors on this movie. And I read in one of the interviews that they each had a little bio and character name.
They really did. And I put together the entire binder for every single background character in the entire movie.
We found the name behind a legend.
That was one of my last jobs in Australia, was putting together every single backstory on a single sheet. So, okay, if they were mentioned in the book, here's their name, here's the information from the book. Are they a real character from real life? If yes, then here's their bio. If not, then we made something up. And then so that was all of the book people. And then we took this amazing spread from Vanity Fair. I believe it's 1922. It's a caricature of 91 who's who of New York, called A Typical First Night Audience in New York, the scene which invariably confronts the actor. So you see all these amazing faces. So that was sort of our huge roadmap too for a lot more of the party attendees. And then you have the people from West Egg and the people from East Egg. West Egg is new money, East Egg is old money, where Tom Buchanan lives. And so creating all these different groups of people. And then you have like the school guys and everyone in their Yale blazers. And so every single group was accounted for, and every single actor had a name. And that was super important, because Baz doesn't believe in background actors. He believes in just smaller part actors. And I really love that mentality that everyone was given a job to do, and everyone had a lot more creative freedom with these characters. And so you can really feel that they're not just miming or doing it or going through the motions. They have an actual part to play. And that was super important.
I love that approach. I mean, it's almost like how you'd imagine someone would approach doing like 8 Harry Potter films, like developing like an entire world. Baz and you and Catherine did all that for like just one singular film. Really, like there's so much world building, and you could feel like all these characters are connected and have a part to play, even if they have not a single word of dialogue, which I think it's so impressive.
I just love how he treats every single actor that is on camera. They're all important. They're all equally important, whether they're very small in the background or in the foreground. They're all equally important. And that was a huge thing for me too, as an early costume designer, just treating everyone is equal, and everyone deserves respect and care. And that's been, something I've taken with me my whole career.
So you mentioned that you were an extra in the film, running around in the party, which you've also did in Freaky, I believe, also. Yes. So this is starting to become a thing. You're like Stan Lee or something.
Well, look for me and We Have a Ghost. I believe my cameo is still in there. So
Good. I am very happy about this. We're going to have to do a podcast just about Whitney Adams sightings. So what was it like wearing the clothes? And then also, what were some like fun pieces of yours that we might have seen throughout the film?
So just getting to, pick out my own dress that I was going to wear, I think the fabric of the silver dress that I wore came from, I believe, B&J in New York. And it was so fun I remember swatching this fabric and then purchasing the fabric and then shipping the fabric to Australia and then seeing the dress in the workroom. And then I got to wear it. How cool is that? So
I'll take this one. Thank you.
I'd never worn fake eyelashes before. That was the first time I wore fake eyelashes. And I had a whole wig and a flower in my wig. And it was just out of control amazing. And then literally the last thing, I had finished with the movie, and I had stayed in Australia for about a month just to hang out and rest and sightsee, because I was already
until they kick you out.
Right. Well, it was my birthday, and like they had me come back, and we had like cake, and it was really fun day. And then CM is like, "Hey, could you make some butterfly wings?" So I spent the next like week or so making these butterfly wings, because she knew, she knows my history with beading, and I was a tailor first. And so in addition to all of my design duties, I often was Baz and CM's personal tailor for a lot of like their homewares and personal stuff. So she knew what I could do. So she brought me in she's like, we need more help. There was too much to do. So Kay, can you make these butterfly wings? I was like, sure, no problem. And I was just so excited to be useful, to get to do another beautiful creation. And yeah, you can really see the butterfly wings in the movie. And then I got to go to the New York premiere, which was so exciting. And I made my own dress from fabric from the movie. When I left Australia, they gave me my favorite lace from Solstice, which we got. I can talk later about Solstice, but I got my favorite fabric. And I was wearing a dress that I made out of my favorite fabric. And I walk into the premiere and there are my butterfly wings on a model who, there was all these people wearing 20s costumes and then a couple things from the movie. And there were my wings right there. So I got to talk to the model who was wearing my wings, and she was so excited that she's like, "You made these?" And I was like, "I did." That was a nice moment.
I made those. I love that. That's so wonderful. I mean, such a great experience. I mean, only a few people really know what it's like to been on that set. So I want to be inside your head.
Yeah. I am a lucky, lucky, lucky one.
Speaking of just beautiful things, another collaboration that made this an outstanding film was the collaboration with Tiffany. And Catherine said in an interview with Fashionista how about everyone is so excited. And Carrie, who plays Daisy, she said, Carrie, who's usually rather sparing and very tasteful in her jewelry, was like, "Oh, I just want everything." She loved all the jewelry. And I can't blame her because this movie set off so many jewelry trends of the time. Like, I can't count them. The headbands, the statement necklaces. It was crazy.
It was definitely a time, just seeing it all unfold in real time as the movie came out. It was so insane and cool to see. And yeah, just getting to stare at all that jewelry on set and behind the scenes. And, it needed its own bodyguard. We had, I think, 2 Tiffany's bodyguards with the jewelry at all times. Wow. So it was, pretty intense. I'd never seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
Yeah. We weren't messing around.
Yeah.
I'm not one who usually notices jewelry. It's just like my brain's just not wired that way costume wise. But this movie, I was like obsessed with all the pearls, all the jewelry. I mean, I was obsessed with the jewelry, and I have no desire to love jewelry in my life. It was so good.
Especially these pieces for Daisy's a party look, like especially the matching bracelets with like the attachment to the rings. Yes. I was just like, it's over the top, but it's beautiful. And like, you don't want anything else out of this movie.
No, so good. I'm obsessed with it.
And speaking of her party look, again, this was a Prada design. And Whitney, can you tell us a little bit more about this look?
Completely. I mean, it was one, I can tell you, it is extremely heavy because I was carrying Milligan's fit model for a lot of her looks because we were basically the same size at the time. And so I remember when that dress arrived and we needed to make the underslip to go underneath it. And so, they draped some fabric on me and put that dress on. And oh boy, I got indentations in my my shoulders, like immediately. And so we're like, okay, we learned something about how heavy it is and what we have to do. Can't shift it. Once it stays, it stays.
That's crazy. So they just sent you the the chandelier, like
the
overlay?
Chandelier part. And we had several underdress options, but the way that CM works is that she loves to have a lot of different A, B, C, D, E choices because, it all depends on, looking at things on camera. So you really want to, if Baz like, oh, I want something different, we could turn on a dime and do something else. And so, we had the dresses that it came with, and then we made several other underlayers just to have different options. So that was what was so fun is that, it was playing dress up, and I got to be the one to wear a couple of the things. I also got to be a mermaid and a bunch of other, I got to try on a bunch of different other clothes, but this one was definitely the most exciting thing that I got to put on my body.
What's it made out of? Exactly. If it was so heavy that you had like indentations, what is it made out of? Because I thought it was like acrylic.
It's just all those stones, but it's still extremely heavy. It still is extremely heavy.
Yeah, I mean, like the indentations are still
wild.
in Whitney's
They're
shoulders.
still there. 12 years later.
That
beautiful.
is wild.
The chandelier dress is a top tier museum worthy costume. Yeah. It's one of the best we've seen on this podcast. I feel like my one costume rule them all is changing. Anyways.
More about Daisy, because Daisy just has so many fantastic looks, especially the opening one that you talked a little bit about earlier and Catherine talked about to Fashionista. She said, for Daisy's clothes, I got a vast majority from a fantastic lace company called Solstice. They're French and they've been around since the late 19th century. They have an enormous archive. They do work for all the big fashion houses. And I think that was fantastic about having that resource is that I could really get the kinetic, whether it was with the floral tassels on the purple dress or the fluttery skirt made of organza petals on the lace dress that you first see Daisy in. And that first dress, man, what about an entrance for a character?
That entire 2 minutes when you see her and Elizabeth Debicki's character, it's so beautiful. It took my breath away.
It's so dazzling, and I just love the juxtaposition of Jordan's in these pajamas, and Daisy's in a ball gown. I just love that Daisy's the type of character to just rock a ball gown in the middle of the afternoon. And getting to go into Solstice and pick through all of their laces was, one of my favorite moments ever on a movie. Their work was amazing. I got to be the one doing all the ordering for Solstice for this movie and just getting to talk about all the different laces and, help choose different colorways. And, the lace came as is. So we pulled a lot of the petals off and then we'd put them back on once we had the shape that we wanted. And that's what happened with the purple tea dress. All of those tassels were all over the lace in a different sort of organic pattern. So we pulled everything off and then put it so it would go exactly the way that we wanted it to go. But the lace is the most beautiful pieces I've ever seen in my whole life. It's incredible. They've been around for a long time for a reason.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. And I love it, especially for Daisy's character, because she's such a fragile person. You touch her and she breaks. And I thought that was just such a beautiful visual for her character were those laces.
Yeah, it's all very light and also very vulnerable, I would say, through her fabrics and her color palettes. It's just so much storytelling through her costumes about her character.
I also particularly like the one that I kind of feel like is the most different is her swimsuit visiting Gatsby ensemble. That one, I'm like, I want this for my wardrobe.
Right.
Let me tell you, that swimsuit's pretty comfortable. I got to wear that one too. It's super fun.
This week,
I'm trying to remember where exactly. I think we made that robe out of an existing shawl, vintage shawl.
I am so excited to talk about this film. The best way
together
call it
with
Catherine
other
Martin March.
That sounds pretty cool. If I remember correctly.
Martin March.
It has been 12 years, so I'm trying to rack my brain a little bit.
I can't remember you remember as much as you do. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. You sound like you just did it a year ago. So we're good.
It was a quite formative time in my life, to be sure. I think we all remember our first, big movie, and it's one of those huge moments in my life.
Right. It's so beautiful. And shout out to Carey Mulligan. She killed this role.
Yes.
Oh, she's amazing. Love her so much. She was so fabulous. And the palpable connection between her and Leo. They had great chemistry, and she's just so talented and just a wonderful person to boot.
Yeah.
Someone not so wonderful was Tom Buchanan, who just, because it's Joel Edgerton, just a beautiful man, and all of his clothes, the fit on those the fit, which I'm assuming was very intentional.
Yeah.
When I saw this guy, I already knew. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to trust him. Seen this movie, but I'm like, even in the back of my head, I was like, this guy's setting off red flags for me right now.
Well, yeah, he rolls up on a horse with a polo thing. Like, of course not.
He's very intense from the first minute you meet him. And like what I love about all of like his color palette is all of these blues and tans, very, preppy, collegiate, old money. His almost everything, I believe, is double-breasted in all of his suits. And, just the strength and the power, like the power shoulder. It's, not one of these new suit designs. He's very much in this old world, and that's where he comes from. And I loved all of those little design touches. And we picked skull and crossbones lining for all of his suits, which sort of harken to his, collegiate group that him and Nick are in, and also just sort of the power and scariness of him. So that was a really fun little detail. And you do see it in the movie in the apartment in New York. You see him in just his vest, and you can see the skull and crossbones there.
I'll have to go back because I read that in one of the articles that like he just loved that for his character. And I was like, I was looking for it when I watched the movie, and I'll have to go back because I didn't see it in the moment.
It is there in the apartment scene.
One more time, everybody. Let's get back to the couch. It was great costume for his character. I mean, again, a lot of storytelling. You didn't want to trust him. His colors are very set in his ways, and interesting guy. I don't know who my favorite character is at this point. I don't think I have one. I trust nobody.
Someone you definitely can't trust was Gatsby himself. Gatsby. Catherine told Screen Daily, evening clothes were so important for Gatsby. The parties define the world he inhabits. We had perfectly tailored suits.
Understatement.
Leonardo DiCaprio never looks disheveled for a second in this film.
He's incredible in this movie, and he looks incredible in basically every single scene. I mean, even his last scene, I was like, he looks pretty good right now.
I getting to make all of those amazing suits for him. And actually, one of my jobs was hand carrying all of his suits on the airplane to Australia. So when I came to Australia, I had just 4 giant suitcases of suits for Leo.
Did you bring anything for yourself? Or?
Just a tiny suitcase of my stuff. But all of our suits, everything was made by Brooks Brothers. And then all of our principal suits was made by Martin Greenfields in New York via Brooks Brothers. And so Brooks Brothers was a contemporary of Fitzgerald, and he mentions them in a lot of his writing, and he was one of their biggest customers. So getting to work with the company that Fitzgerald himself worked with and used was pretty exciting. And we got to dive into their archives and look through every single piece of history that they had. And then they made all of our suits for us. So it was such an amazing collaboration, and getting to talk with them and listen to their history and see all those things that most people don't get to see was really fun.
Wow, that's so awesome. I specifically like this one suit he wears, this pink suit. I believe it's in a more daytime scene. Maybe it's like a just nice dinner, but that pink looks so good on him. And just the fabric, I really want to touch the fabric.
It's a really beautiful linen. And, we did a workshop of the movie in 2010 with just Leo and Toby, and we made 3 different pink suits, I believe 2 or 3 pink suits for that, just to start the process of what color is right, what type of fabric is right. And both those were the wrong pink. And then we went and we did another workshop, I believe it was in May 2011. So like 6 months before we started shooting, we're just trying to get the right colors on him and actually make full suits. And I think we ended up making 4 or 5 different pink suits before we landed on in our, one of our fittings in Australia that this was the exact one. But it was a whole long process because the pink suit is mentioned in the book. And so it's a very important plot point too, especially Tom mentions it in the script. Like he wears a pink suit for Christ's sake. So it has to be this sort of pompous new money, such a different, he's the opposite of who Tom is. And so the pink suit was extremely important to get right. So it was a lot of tinkering over a year to figure out what it actually was going to end up being.
I love that.
I love that. One of my favorite characters.
Oh, man.
In this whole movie. And Spencer, I think she was one of your favorite characters too.
Absolutely. My favorite character was for sure Jordan, played by Elizabeth Debicki. I did not know she was in this. She looks amazing every single scene. Even what Whitney called her pajamas, I was like, wow. Those are spectacular. I cannot believe that. I
didn't realize they were supposed to be pajamas.
I did not know that either. She just looks to me at a 12 at all times in this film. I just can't get over her looks. I mean, what was it like working with her on her character?
She's so wonderful. Like, I loved her. And I think Jordan's my favorite character too. Like, I'm a golfer. Like, my whole previous life in growing up was I was captain of my golf team. Golf was my whole life. And so I feel this affinity to Jordan, the golfer. And so it was really fun to talk to Elizabeth about golfing, and she had a golf coach and, you know, working on her swing, and then this sort of modern woman in the 20s, you know, all of her stuff is very much more heavily in the later part of the decade. So there's these amazing pajamas, which we got a lot of vintage 20s pajamas to model these off of. And I have a set of my own. I just think 20s and 30s pajamas are like the coolest thing ever. But they really came into prevalence in the late 20s, early 30s. And so that's her sort of modern eye to everything. And I love her party dress. This whole beaded collar, that was from Solstice. And they had an existing colorway, and we had them bead this specifically for us with our colorway to make this piece happen. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
It is fantastic. I sat up in bed. I was like, oh, what are we watching? This is really, really good. Yeah, I mean, she is just so amazing, and she's killing it right now. She's going to be in Guardians coming up again. She's in The Crown right now, killing it. I mean, she's just killing it right now. So I'm just a super fan at the moment.
And she, you know, she was so awesome working with Ben. And, you know, I am so excited to see her do so well. I think this was one of her first roles, if not her first role. And
yeah, she was new.
So wonderful and amazing then. So it's just been fun to see her rise and success.
Another scene I thought that was really interesting, you know, this film was so vibrant and colorful, but then when we drive through the Valley of Ashes, everything's very dark and gray, you know, depressing. So I was wondering, Whitney, you know, what was it like working on that part of film? Because it's all super high contrast, vibrancy. They get to the Valley of Ashes, and almost felt like it could be a different movie, which I also think it's genius when you see their cars drive through, and it's almost like you see the majority of the movie, you know, drive through the valley at that moment. And except for the mistress as well, too, where she wore lots of color. What was it like working on that part of the film?
I think the thing that's so interesting is this high juxtaposition between all the wealthy people you see throughout the movie. And then, you know, it's such a small portion of who actually lived in New York at the time. So that's, I think, one of the biggest critiques of this, you know, what Fitzgerald is doing is critiquing like these, you know, fluffy rich people. What are they complaining about? You know?
Right.
And so you get to really see the real world as it is around them, and sort of the gradedness and the groundedness of that world. And, you know, Myrtle's character is very aspirational, and she's the one who probably differs the most from the book. In the book, I remember her first dress is supposed to be brown. And you know, I would know because I pulled every visual reference out of the book in a spreadsheet. And so this was a big departure from one of the few, you know, color choices mentioned in the book, because, you know, even her makeup is very much modeled after the silent stars of the era. And, you know, she's trying to dress above her station. And a lot of that has to do with her, you know, affair with Tom. And then you see the rest of the people in the Valley of the Ashes, and that's, you know, workers who are, you know, shoveling coal, and the sort of real life New York City. And so it was fun to get to create that world, because it feels so separate from the party scenes. And, you know, I love 1920s day wear. So getting to, I got to do a bunch of like initial designing of, you know, pulling fabrics that we had and figuring out, and, you know, sending them to CM, and then she would, you know, change style lines and do this, and then, you know, I'd go back and revise, and then we'd send it to the workroom, and it was just a really cool process.
Right. It's such an interesting process, and, you know, I really do appreciate that part of the film that really, it gets back to the deeper meaning of the story, the novel, and what this film is trying to say. You work with a lot of great actors and actresses on this film. I know you probably can't say too much, but what was it like collaborating with, I don't know, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tobey Maguire? I mean, there's some really cool people here.
I know. I couldn't believe it. And they were all so wonderful. I mean, I have nothing but amazing things to say about all of them. I mean, everyone was so fun to watch work. I mean, Leo is one of the most crazy, incredible actors ever. And getting to see him work on stage in real life was so exciting. And he's so good at what he does, and he can nail a take on the first take. And they were all just so fun to get to know, and like, oh, you're real people in real life. And I remember I had to like pin something. I took all their measurements. So that was, being a tailor, I was the person who took everyone's measurements as well, and sent all of the measurements down to the workroom in Australia, because we were a really tiny team in New York for the first, the New York team costume wise, I think there was 4 of us total.
Wow.
So it was really, tight, and we were doing everything. All of us were doing everything. And so it was fun. And the actors came in for these workshops, so we got to meet them well before we even started filming. So it was great to start this dialogue beginning in September 2010. And then we didn't start filming until September 2011. So it's a whole year that we'd been working together. So that was really fun.
Whitney, Spencer, are you ready to play our favorite game?
You know it.
Yes.
I'm actually super ready.
Yes. The one costume to rule them all.
I will go first. I actually have been switching back and forth all morning. Originally, I went with Jordan's black party look, but then I switched to the pajama look. But then when Whitney talked about it, I went back to her party look with the beaded necklace collar. It's just so beautiful, so gorgeous. She just looks incredible, and I'm obsessed with that fabric you were talking about. Just everything about it is a 12 to me. It's just top tier. I love that dress. And plus, I know you two probably are going to pick some Daisy looks, so I had to give one for my girl, Jordan.
Spencer, you were absolutely right. I chose Daisy's first look, that petally dress, just because like that scene is so beautiful. It's like the perfect balance between Catherine's, set design and the costume design. It's just all like fluttery, and it tells you like everything you need to know about Daisy right away. It's like she is this young woman raised with the Victorian morals, so she's not exactly, a strong, independent woman of the time, but she is trying to enjoy all the new freedoms that she is gaining. And she's just this fragile person who really just wants to sit around in a beautiful dress and do beautiful things. And I just think it is so perfect for her.
That's a good choice. Whitney, it is your turn. What is your one costume to rule them all?
Well, this was extremely hard since, I helped work on pretty much every costume that you see in this movie. But I think just for the sheer joy of getting to put this dress on and just how insane it felt and looks is Daisy's party dress. That, was a collaboration between CM and Prada. And I love everything that we designed and created. But this was so much fun to wear, just extravagant and wild.
It is wild. And like just seeing it on a film, like, it looks beautiful. It's one of the best costumes you see throughout the film. But like talking to you and getting a backstory behind it, knowing how heavy it is, I mean, this is just an incredible piece. It's amazing. With that was amazing, Whitney. So looking back now, it's been a while since you've even seen the film you were telling me. I mean, how does it feel to travel back in time and see all your work?
I'm so nostalgic. I think it's definitely wild to see. It's been years and years since I last saw the movie. And, just remembering that year in my life and how this movie changed my life in such a huge way. The fact that Baz and CM took a chance on me with 0 film experience and, hired me for 3 weeks, which turned into many years. And so I'm so grateful for them. And I always, will be, and I adore them so much. And so it was just fun to go back and relive all of those experiences and moments. So that was really fun for me. And, I'm so excited for Sam to be nominated this year for Elvis, which I thought it was just so incredible. And she, knocked it out of the park. And I'm thinking back to our Oscar night for Gatsby, and I altered her dress, her Prada dress that she wore to the Oscars. And I remember staying up all night, and I think I finished it 10 minutes before she had to walk out onto the red carpet.
That is insane.
So I was completely delirious when, we won, and, the celebration afterward, one of the best nights. But I remember I think I slept till 6 p.m. later that day. So tired.
Yeah, I don't do well sewing under pressure. I can't imagine that kind of pressure, especially when there was a good chance she was going to walk away with a Academy Award in a couple hours. So
I was like, I just have to finish it. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. It just has to get done. Anything for CM, anything for them. I adore them. So I'm really happy to talk about this chapter of our lives.
And we were so happy to have you as a special guest host this week. It was so fun. We love talking to you. Yes. Thank you for joining us for kicking off our Catherine Martin month. We love you, Whitney. Thank you.
Oh, love you guys. Thank you so much for having me. I will come back any time. I love talking every costume with you guys.
Yeah. Well, be careful what you ask for. Because well, Elizabeth,
let's get into next week.
Well, a couple weeks from now.
Yes. 2 weeks from now.
Right.
Yes. That's our new schedule.
To keep up with the Catherine Martin theme, we are watching Elvis, but we are also being joined by another special guest for this episode. I just got chills just actually saying that out loud. Elizabeth, do you want to tell everyone who will be here?
So excited. Catherine Martin will be joining us to talk about her newest film, Elvis, and her Oscar nomination. I am so excited.
I have to admit, I'm a little scared.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. Yeah. Don't be scared. She's the
best. She is the best. That's why we're scared. But it's going to be fun. I mean, I have enough questions to keep her here for 2 weeks, but we will make it a great episode, I'm sure. Very excited. If you all enjoyed this week's episode, though, and want to tell us what your one costume rule them all was, we have our voicemail, 626-515-1826. Tell us what your favorite costume was. It probably was a chandelier dress. That's cool. We still want to hear your thoughts. Leave us a voicemail. We don't answer the phone, so remember that. And you could also email us at theartofcostumeblogcast@gmail.com. Send in your messages, and we'll read them on the podcast.
Yes, and if you're missing our content in between episodes, you can follow us at The Art of Costume Pod on Instagram, at The Art of Costume on TikTok. If you want a little cozy sweatshirt for these winter days, you can get the Art of Costume Blogcast sweatshirt or shirt or whatever you like at theartofcostume.com/pod store. And if you love us, please leave us a little 5-star text review on Apple Podcast. That is always greatly appreciated.
And don't forget to follow Whitney on Instagram. Whitney, yes. What is your Instagram handle?
I am WAA Costume Design on Instagram. And I'm about to be sharing all the behind the scenes for We Have a Ghost leading up to our premiere. So
yes.
Come join in the fun.
You have to see We Have a Ghost. It'll be on Netflix on February 24th. Am I correct?
Yep, that's it. I cannot wait. This was such a joy to make with my favorite person, director, writer, Christopher Landon, our 4th collaboration together. So I can't wait for everyone to see it.
I'm so excited. It sounds like Whitney might even have a quick second in the film too. So look out for that too.
Yes, look out for me. I won't know until I see the movie, but I'm pretty sure I'm still in there.
Okay. Thank you, Whitney, and thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you soon.
The Art of Costume blogcast is hosted and produced by Elizabeth Joy Glass and Spencer Williams. Our audio engineering and editing is done by Dan White. Follow us on Instagram at The Art of Costume Pod or visit the artofcostumeblogcast.com for all blogcast updates. If you want to support the show, go to theartofcostume.com/podstore. For more costume reviews, deep dives, and interviews, head over to theartofcostume.com, a blog dedicated to highlighting the best in costume design.
And this episode is fully about the party lifestyle in many ways.
Oh, yeah.
We have a very special... What? We have a very special...
Spencer needs better internet.
Oh, no.
Am I here now? Hello?
You back?
I think so.
Okay.
Dang, I just fully introduced Whitney. I'm trying again. Okay.